Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick update on my experience with the Sony A6300. This camera is the successor to the A6000, a very popular mirrorless interchangeable APS-C camera. And here we're looking at the kit, which is priced at $1,150. You can pick up the body alone for $1,000 US. The kit lens is the same one that Sony's been using since the NEX6. It is a 16 to 50 millimeter power zoom pancake, and it does perform relatively well. Again, if you're going to want to take this camera to another level, you will need to invest in more glass. Now, that doesn't mean that the 16 to 50 power zoom that comes with this kit won't be suitable for many users. It will. But for those of you that do want to go beyond the base or entry-level capabilities of this camera, you will need to invest in glass, just like you would with any other interchangeable lens camera. Now, what does this have that the A6000 does not? First and foremost, I would say improved autofocus, no question about it. Even though we're still getting 11 frames per second, it has actually improved when it comes to tracking. Do I have a percentage for you yet in terms of how much better? No, I do not. But is it better? Absolutely. Also, UHD video. You have Super 35 video capability. You also have the ability to shoot at 120 frames per second. So if you're looking for slow motion video, that's another thing that this camera does, which the previous gen simply could not tackle. We also have an improved viewfinder that you just saw turn off because I covered the sensor. That EVF, which is OLED based, for those of you that are wondering, like all of Sony's cameras for the most part in the past, has a wider field of view as well as a higher resolution and refresh rate, which equates to a much better EVF than the A6000. And the A6000 was no slouch, but here we're getting just a better piece of kit. And that's in regard to just about everything that this camera has to offer. One of the most impressive things, by the way, is the fact that this camera does not overheat while recording UHD video, something that the A7R II had an issue with, and many other Sony cameras, mirrorless especially, in the past have had. So that's something I wanted to stress, point out for those of you that are wondering. You can see the A6000 right here with the 10 to 18 millimeter wide-angle f4 lens, and there I've got it in focus. Keep in mind, 425 points of phase detection on this. Of course, still a hybrid with contrast, just like the A6000 before it, but more points of focus than we had with the A6000 that I'm shooting right now. And that's what's important. If I go ahead and take a look at that image and blow it up, you will see there is a tremendous amount of detail in this 24 megapixel sensor. Now, even though you can shoot RAW, you cannot shoot uncompressed, or rather, it will not render uncompressed stills. So for those of you that are looking for uncompressed images, you will need to step up to a more expensive grade of camera from Sony than the A6300. So keep that in mind. When it comes to the actual menu, I'll take you into it right now. Attempt to take you into it. There we go. Go ahead and jump through this quickly just so you can get an idea of what we've got under the hood. So first and foremost, of course, image size, 24 megapixels down to 6, depending on what you want to run, your aspect ratio, and of course your quality. It's all a matter of personal preference. With a camera like this, I think you're good shooting and extra fine, but of course, RAW and JPEG is generally the way to go if you want the best of both worlds. That's just my opinion. Beyond that, of course, right now, grayed out because of the mode I'm in on the dial. You've got your panorama size and direction. File format, recording settings. You can see I'm in XAVC-S 4K. Sony has actually designated it for 4K as opposed to traditional HD, or downsampling, not downsampling, but stepping down to AVC HD. Inside the 4K, just so you know, we actually have the setting right here for 30p 100 megabit. This is the highest quality that the camera is capable of recording. Again, no overheating, but if you want 0 pixel binning, you will have to step down to 24p. You can see it says Super 35 right there. That's the only way you're going to get no pixel binning involved with this camera, which is definitely good so far from what I've seen. This is some best-in-class video from a mirrorless camera, especially at this price. Dual video record option, it's always been there with Sony, nothing new. drive mode, bracketing, your flash mode, your red eye reduction, your focus mode, your focus area. This is all here. Nothing new. This isn't specific to this camera at all. It's more of what you've seen if you're a Sony user from years past. Everything is pretty much as I expected it would be. It is a step up from the A6000, no question about it. Your drive speed, your tracking, and the tracking definitely seems improved even at normal. You don't have to step it up to high, but of course, if you do, the expectation is that it's going to be more effective. Your exposure comp, stepping, everything is here. Metering, white balance, your creative style, that hasn't gone away for those of you that like that. Picture profile, focus magnifier, everything is there. Smile and face detection. It doesn't have the eye focus that the A7R Mark II has, to my knowledge, but I'm going to spend more time with it. So far, things look really good. Again, the autofocus seems to be superior to just about every other camera that Sony makes, and that's kind of what I expected. That's what the A6000 established, and it seems like the 6300 picks up right where the 6000 left off. Above and beyond that, steady shot. A lot of you were disappointed or expected Sony to put in-body stabilization into the A6300. Of course, that's not part of what the APS-C line at least has ever been thus far. It's all been about stabilization being in the lens. In this case, the 16 to 50 power zoom pancake, or right here, the 10 to 18 f4 wide angle zoom. So still, the stabilization is going to be reliant upon the lens. I can say from my use so far, video does, it's still very good, but not, of course, as good as the full frame line where we do have 5-axis in-body stabilization. That does appear to be, I would say, significantly better, but to the user and what the user's needs, of course, is a different area altogether to address. Many people will be very satisfied with what this camera produces, or will just use something to steady it like a monopod or tripod. Didn't want to lose the menu there. Get back into it and take you through the balance here. So the color space, you can also deal with your audio levels, wind noise reduction. Then we step into zebra mode here, manual focus assist, basically everything you'd expect. This is nothing new, like I said earlier. Grid line, marker settings, peaking, exposure setting guide, your live view display, your pre-autofocus settings, autofocus area. Here we've got, again, just everything that you're accustomed to seeing if you're a Sony user. It hasn't taken any significant new direction. You have silent shooting if you desire it, something that I think is great to have on a camera like this, which is a welcomed addition. Beyond that, really so far, I'm impressed with this. Controlling the movie button, if you want to designate it, you can. So it's really, I would say, a very well-rounded and well-manufactured camera. The feel overall is definitely, I would say, more impressive, more solid than the original or its predecessor, the A6000. You still have the Wi-Fi and NFC capability, of course, with Sony's Play Memories application. You can download whether it's live grading, time-lapse, whatever it may be. Some are free, some are pay. Remote shooting, of course, is free. And in terms of playback, not much to show there. In terms of the actual settings, monitor brightness, all of these things can be played with, color temperature. We also now have video. S-Log is on board here. That's what I meant to say, which is a new addition to this camera, to this line, to the mirrorless APS-C line from Sony. So that's another good thing to see, something that generally had not been available. Your 4K output select is there, your selection rather, and that's pretty much it. I mean, so far this camera is impressive. I do think that it is worth the price tag that Sony has assigned to it. I mean, you're looking at something that right now in its form factor is unmatched. The only thing that really comes close is the predecessor, the A6000. Do I think that the autofocus speed is very close? Absolutely. But to have 4K with no overheating, superior autofocus overall, that already is enough to put the brand new A6300 in my bag without any hesitation, whereas the A6000 I could recommend to anyone who was strictly interested in fantastic still performance. However, if you wanted a balance or the best of both worlds, that's where the A6000 was no longer current. In fact, Sony kind of fell asleep on giving us UHD and improved video in every aspect that you could want inside a mirrorless APS-C camera. And even though their focus has been primarily on full frame, they really did begin here in the APS-C world. So I'm glad to see that focus, that attention come back to the APS-C line in the form of the A6300. And so far, I am very impressed with what Sony has put together here. It's not a perfect camera, but it is definitely well worth, again, its asking price, which is more than the original A6000 retailed for, but that's the general scope of what Sony does with their cameras if they are well received. Like any manufacturer, they're going to raise prices if they are best in class. And right now, when I look at all of the competition out there, there's no question that they have a winner here with all of its features, especially, as I mentioned earlier, between the improved EVF and the 120 frames per second at 1080p. I mean, that is some great stuff. I'll post a sample of the slow motion video as well. I've already got a sample up of the video quality in 4K at 30p 100 megabits, and I'm impressed. It's only going to do better with better glass. What I've been shooting has been primarily with the kit pancake zoom, and that's because I think that's what most users are going to be actually dealing with. Of course, I have a lot of E-mount glass, so I'm going to have a much broader scope of experience with this camera as time passes, but as it stands right now, the majority of time that I've spent with it has been with these two lenses, really to give me the best idea of what it performs like natively rather than with full-frame FE glass. But, over 300 shots, I haven't put it through that many cycles on the battery. Video does eat batteries pretty easily if you're shooting in UHD, for those of you that are curious. But overall, again, I really can't find that much to nitpick with when the camera is still lightweight, but more solid feeling and just more robust in every regard when it comes to features and overall performance. So better autofocus, better EVF, and the UHD video that really left the A6000 kind of in the dark for almost a year now, even though it is a beast of a little camera. So hope you all enjoyed the update on the A6300. Of course, I will be bringing you even more. I'll likely be comparing this to other cameras, as you might imagine. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, hit that like and please feel free to subscribe. Later.